Good morning, Year 3 4, and welcome to today's reading home learning. Yesterday, we started by doing a little prediction. So, we looked at the front cover of our new book, Oliver and the Seawigs, and we predicted what was going to happen. So, today, we're going to start reading our book. And to do that, we're going to think about how we can read fluently and what strategies we can use to help us read really well. So I've listed some here for you. You need to follow the writing with your finger. You can use a ruler to know what line you're on. You can read out loud using expression, tone and volume. So as I read, you can read out loud with me. You have to pay attention to punctuation. Take a breath at full stops and commas. And also sound out those unfamiliar words. And if you really don't know what they mean, you could ask an adult or look in a dictionary. So there's some ways that we can become really fluent and successful readers. And it's going to be really hard for us to just do all 5 straight away. So today we're going to focus on 3. I want you to follow the writing with your finger. We're definitely going to be doing that today. I want you to use a ruler to know what line you're on. And I also want you to pay attention to punctuation and really focus on taking breaths at full stops and commas, okay? So those are the 3 things we are going to focus on today. And we're going to read the first chapter of our book. Oliver and the Seawigs. Oliver Crisp was only 10 years old, but they had been busy and exciting 10 years because Oliver's mother and father were explorers. That's our first full stop, so you should have taken a breath. They had met on the top of Mount Everest. They had been married at the lost temple of Amun-Hotep and had spent their honeymoon searching for the elephant's graveyard. And when young Oliver was born, they simply bought themselves a back carrier and an off-road baby buggy and went right on exploring. But at last there came a day when Mr. and Mrs. Crisp realised there was just nothing left to explore. They had trekked to the headwaters of the great rivers and stood on the summits of all the unconquered mountains. Thanks to them, the lost city of Propakopepet was lost no longer. The mystery of Mokel Mbembe marshes had been solved. There was no more blank spaces left on the map. So they packed their belongings aboard their Explorermobile and drove home to the house which they owned, but they hardly ever lived in, by Deepwater Bay, near the little seaside town of St. Porrox. "No more exploring for us," they told each other sadly. "It's time we settled down." Oliver wasn't sad, though. He was excited. He was tired of living the explorer's life. The house he was coming home to was one he'd only seen on holidays. A brief 2-week breaks before fresh expeditions. 10 years on the move. No time to make friends or feel at home anywhere. No time to go to school. He never even had a proper bedroom of his own. Just a bunk in the back of the Explorermobile, and all his things were hidden away in trunks and storage boxes in the spaces under the Explorermobile's seats. He thought it would be exciting to have a whole house to live in, and wake up every day in the same view. At Deepwater Bay, he would have his own bedroom and bathroom, and he would be starting next term at the school in St. Porrox. That might not sound so good to you, but Oliver had never been to school, and he was excited about that too. He perched between his parents as Mum steered the Explorermobile carefully along the winding lanes. He was waiting for the moment when Deepwater Bay came in sight. "It's not a very pretty house," his mother reminded him. "It's really rather old and creaky, and the wind blows right through it. It needs lots of work doing, but we never found the time. Or the money. There's not a lot of money in exploring." "OK," said Oliver, but he didn't stop feeling excited. They came over a sudden headland, and there it was, the blue bay all dotted with shaggy, steep-sided islands. The house stood at the top of the beach. It was big and grey, with orange lichen dappling its roof. "Wow!" said Oliver. "Wow!" said his dad. "Wow!" said his mum, stopping the Explorermobile on the curve of the steep lane and just sitting there, staring in sheer amazement. "Wow!" they all three said again. Oliver was pleased that his parents sounded just as thrilled as he was. Then he looked at them and saw that it was not the house that they were looking at, but at those scruffy islands in the bay. "Where have they come from?" asked his father. "I don't remember them." Mum was rustling the map. "They are not marked here," she gasped. 9, 10, 15, Dad muttered. "They must be new islands. Volcanic, probably." "Unmapped," said Mum. "Uncharted," said Dad. "Unexplored," they whispered both together. Oliver sighed. He'd seen them like this before, whenever they heard of a vanished city or a forbidden tomb. Still, he thought at least they can explore these islands from home. He looked happily at the house while Mum, with her eyes on the islands, started the Explorermobile again and took it screeching down the zigzag lane to the beach. Oliver started unpacking at once. While his mother and father fetched down their inflatable dinghy from the Explorermobile's roof, he unlocked the house and carried boxes and bags and suitcases inside. He walked through the big, echoey, dimly familiar rooms, whisking dust sheets off the armchairs which had waited so long for someone to come and sit in them again. He ran upstairs to his room and bounced on the bed. He loved his room already. The way the sunlight came into it and made a long golden stripe down the wallpaper. He opened the window to let in the air and the sea wind and the cries of the gulls. "Oliver!" called his mother and father. They were down at the sea's edge, ready to go off and explore the new islands. They stood in the shallows, waving. Their inflatable dinghy tossed between them as the waves broke under it. "Oliver, come with us!" "I'm busy!" Oliver shouted back. "Why don't you go and have a look around without me?" "I'll be all right." He sighed. He knew his parents loved him. It was just that sometimes he had the feeling that they loved exploring more. The little dinghy's outboard motor drowned out the seagulls with its angry bee buzz as Mum steered through the surf. It circled a small island just offshore, then took off with a roar across the bay towards the larger ones. Oliver brought his suitcase upstairs and opened it. Carefully he set out his favourite things on the shelves and on the windowsill. He arranged his books on the shelf beside his bed. He hung up his clothes in the cupboard. The bar of sunlight moved along the wall, and suddenly Oliver realised it was quite a long time since he'd heard the outboard of his parents' voices. He went to the window and leaned out. Deepwater Bay was deserted, and the evening sun shone golden on the waves. There was no sign of Mum and Dad. The islands had vanished. There was only the orange inflatable dinghy washing back to the shore upon the evening tide. Okay, we've read chapter 1, and tomorrow we're going to answer some questions on it. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you followed with your finger, and I hope you used a ruler to know what line you're on. As we read, we made sure that we paused and took breaths at all full stops and commas, and I'm sure you did that at home as well. So well done, and remember those reading strategies we can use for when we read chapter 2 tomorrow.